Welcome to the RPG After Years, your weekly show covering all things RPGs in the past, present, and future. I'm Scott.
I'm Rich.
And I'm Corey.
No Jay today. He apparently has a migraine. But instead, we have a special guest today. It's one of Corey and I's best and longtime friends, Lauren. Say hi, Lauren.
Hey, everybody.
We thank you for being here once again, your first time on the main show.
Exciting.
Patrons know all about her.
Yeah. But we'll get back to her in just a moment. This is episode 52, and today we will be continuing and finishing our review of our latest RPG Club game, NieR Automata. Since it's a review, we won't be doing any catch-up or news or anything like that. Today, we will be covering the gameplay as well as our final ratings. And for those who are worried, before I forget, Jay did give us his ratings, so we will be counting his thoughts and scores and all that. But before we really dive into the review, Lauren, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. So, like Scott said, this is my first main episode, so that's exciting. And particularly to be on this episode because I happened to nominate this game for the RPG Club. So that's
I should have said that was the main
nifty.
reason why you're here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. But anyway, just a little bit about me. So, like Scott said, he and Corey and I are really close friends, and one of the things we really bonded over were video games and playing video games together the last couple of years. So I've been playing video games since I was a kid. They've been part of my life since I can remember. Mostly PC games growing up and playing on the PlayStation. Had a couple of handhelds, I had a Game Boy Advance and a Nintendo DS and stuff, but primarily played on consoles. I really enjoy story-driven games, immersive cinematic experiences are kind of my jam. But so this was a different game for me in terms of it not being a game I would have ever picked up. But I think that's what's really cool about the RPG Club is you kind of pick up games. And with the new RPG Club game as well, World of Final Fantasy, that's not a game I would typically pick up on my own. So I'm excited to jump into that one as well. But with NieR, I enjoyed it. And, I had a good time playing it because it was so different for me.
Yeah. Excuse me. I've been wanting to play NieR Automata for quite a while now, but it's when do you actually get around to doing it? And also, would have to convince Corey to sink his teeth into it. So it's who knows when it would have finally been before I ever played it. But thanks to this RPG Club, it's a great way to force us to play games, especially Rich.
I don't think I would have ever picked up this game just to play it.
Me either.
But I'm very, very glad that this was the nomination and the winner.
Yeah, I never would have picked it up because it looks weird. It's okay, so there's this French maid chick, you know what I mean? And it's they're fighting robots, so what? Yeah, but
to be fair, it did end up being quite weird.
It was, yeah. No, it definitely was weird, but again, I enjoyed playing through it, and we'll talk more about how I felt about it in the ratings, but in some ways it was a letdown, but still super happy to have had the experience of playing through it.
I remember for the first half of the story, I was thinking, actually, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, as far as how weird things are and how anime weeboo type shit it was going to be. But then then the second half, things got really crazy. I'm okay, there it is.
You're that's what I was waiting for. All right.
Yeah. But so since you weren't on the first part of this episode, we tend to keep the guests to the second part of the review so we stay on time. It takes a while for us to get through stories. So what did you think in general about the story?
I liked it. I liked The characters, I like I said, I really love well-developed characters, like immersive cinematic kind of games. I wouldn't classify this as that because ultimately I feel like the narrative and the plot was a bit disappointing in the end. I just felt like where's the payoff kind of for these characters? I
Hmm.
didn't like care a ton about them. I didn't like not care about them, but I wasn't super torn up when things didn't go well for them. But there were some, really good characters. I really liked Pascal a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe my favorite character. The environment was really fun to play in. There were a lot of standout locations, like the
The
amusement
world
park. I
was cool.
loved. The world was really cool. Um, the structure of the game, I know that's like kind of like a hot topic. Some people like it. I personally didn't really care for it. The different routes and things.
Hmm.
A and B wasn't different enough, I think, to justify that. They could have done a more condensed version, I think, of Route B to give you the experience without like literally playing through the whole thing again.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think I said this. Somebody said this last week, but like, why couldn't they have just made it to where you can switch between 2B and 9S whenever you want during that part of the story, and then just make it a linear story?
Yeah, make it a linear story. And then if they wanted to put different cutscenes from the different characters' perspectives, then it would make sense if you were already switching between the characters.
Yeah,
And then all the bajillion different possible endings, like what was the point of that? Like I didn't really understand the purpose of that. The music, my God, amazing. Like really, really enjoyed that part of the game a
can't hate
lot.
on that.
Not at all. Not at all. Um, the combat was like a little repetitive. I felt like it got a little tedious.
Why do we always
So
have to be holding down the R1 button?
yeah, I know. Yeah, right. It was like, okay. And like a lot of times if I just like didn't want to deal with like enemies, I would just like turn on easy so I could use the auto chips, just be like, just do it for
Yeah.
me. um, so yeah, I mean, as somebody who loves the stories of games, this one I feel like didn't really deliver in that arena. But
Yeah.
again, I had a good time playing it and I'm glad I could check it off and say that I've played this like one time in my life.
Right. I think that was sort of like the general consensus that we had last week was like there was some really solid groundwork for a good, compelling story. But it's like they just didn't get the ball over the finish line, kind of, or it's like they ran out of time almost at the end, or I don't
Yeah,
know.
they fumbled at the 5 yard line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like it definitely had potential. Like it really did. And kind of like you, Scott, in the beginning, I was like, okay, where's this going? Like I was into it, and then it was kind of like a bad season finale. It was like, oh, they pulled a Game of Thrones season 8. It was like,
There you
oh,
go.
okay.
Best analogy yet.
Mm.
Um, so we'll give Corey a chance to talk about the story as well, since we didn't have him on last week either.
I'll keep it kind of short because I'm going to kind of echo I think what kind of the consensus is of it. It does a good job of like pulling you in, and I really you know liked the characters. Um, but once you start to really get, I would say, into the back quarter of the story, not only does like the quote unquote weirdness ratchet up, but you start to kind of, I won't say you lose interest, but the story like kind of loses you a little bit just because I feel like they add in maybe a couple too many elements, and maybe try to backtrack a little too much. Um, but overall, I would say still pretty good. After we put the game down, I still would say that I enjoyed the story that they tried to tell. They maybe just could have executed it a little better.
Yep. Okay, so we all agree then. um, okay, so before we really dive into the review, we're gonna do our RPG releases. We've been trying to do that every week so they don't stack up on us. Want to kick us off on those, Rich?
Yeah. So the past week, the RPGs have released Healer's Quest for the Switch, February 11th, Dragonborn PC, February 12th, Wheel of Fate, which is not in relation with Wheel of Time, February 12th, Osteoblast, sounds like a doctor game, PC for February 12th, Good Night Night, PC, February 16th in early access, Shattered, Tale of Forgotten King PC, February 17th. Exiting early access here soon. Fallen Legion Revenants, PC, Switch, February 16th. Azure Lane Crosswave, Switch, February 16th in North America. The Protagonist X-1 PC, February 18th, entering early access. I know nothing about these games.
So say I don't know anything about these games.
Nope.
Dragonborn sounds familiar, but I think I might maybe be like thinking about Skyrim.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Skyrim.
Yeah. So this coming week we're gonna get Fallen Legion Revenants on the PS4 and Switch in Europe on February 19th. Azure Lane Crosswave on Switch in Europe as well, same day. It's too bad. It looks like Corey had to step away for a second, but Persona 5 Strikers on the PS4, Switch, and PC on February 23rd, which I know he is excited about. He loved Persona 5 Royal, and this is like basically a pseudo sequel to that game. So
I get that once I play it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be playing it. I actually need to look and see if anybody's got like some steel books or some shit. And then Hellpoint, I'm not sure if I said this already, Hellpoint on the Switch on February 25th. So I think I've heard of Hellpoint. I don't know what it is, but clearly we are the masters of knowing what RPGs are.
Yes.
Up on all the
it has so
newest
many
and
weird
the
names.
latest. Yeah,
Yes.
these names are weird. Osteoblast? What is that?
I'm going
Doctor's
to Google
game.
that on the side here.
Oh, love that. I loved Operation as a kid, so if it's like
Yes.
that.
You should look into a game called Trauma Team, Lauren, because it's like a surgery game with like a overarching story to it.
What platform is it on?
Because
it sounds good.
I think it was on the Wii and the DS. So
I used to play this PC game where you were like a Civil War doctor, and it was like really gnarly. Like it was really bloody. Like you would like pour whiskey in people's wounds and like take
Jesus.
bullets out and stuff like that. And I was a child playing this, so
it was educational.
it was.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and deploy into the review right now. Today we'll be covering the gameplay as well as our final ratings. So let's jump right in. So first up is gameplay. So I guess Rich, do you want to like talk about just in general like how it plays?
Yeah, I mean, there is a gameplay to it.
I would hope for a video game.
Yeah, so with the gameplay itself, I guess they talk about exploration. You get dropped into the main part of the world. I guess there's two parts to it. There's the ground, earth floor, basically. You can see all sorts of things. You can do your side quests. You can take out monsters or monsters like mooses and pigs and robots. So that's fun. You can get resources. You can do farming for resources that are all over the place to upgrade your weapons. Then there is the bunker. That's just a small little area that you get a few little pieces of information there that really drive the story. But the main entire exploration does take place on Earth in Hawaii.
I thought we decided it was Tokyo.
It was Tokyo? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think, how many places are there actually in this area? Because it seems like it's supposed to be big, but it's really not that big.
It is like mostly open world, but it's a pretty small world.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the desert, the amusement park, the beach, and then the resistance camp, and then the kingdom. Right?
Yeah,
that's basically
it.
Other
areas. Yeah,
is little smaller ones. So you can just open world to an extent. Open world closed.
An open closed world.
Yeah, let's just say that.
Open-ish world.
Yes. So we want to talk about the platforming pieces of it as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the platforming, obviously jump, dash. You can run if you hold the button down long enough. A2 or 9S to pick up speed. Side scrolling. I do really like that.
Yeah, it took me way too long to figure out that you don't have to hold the run button. You just got to press it and then.
I mean, what?
I think I actually held the button.
I did too.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, you don't have to. If you like click it 3 times, they achieve like maximum velocity running wise, and then you can let it go.
I don't think I figured that out.
Today you learned.
Well, me and Corey did not know this.
Time to start a new playthrough.
I was about to say on my next playthrough, I'll remember.
Let's boot it up.
I will never play this game again.
Shut up, Rich.
Sorry. So the side scrolling. Okay, so the really cool aspect to it is side scrolling. There's a couple places where we get to in the story where it will actually transition you into side scrolling. The kingdom, for example, the different levels of the kingdom, it switches you back and forth to that. Anybody have any opinions of that?
There was one area where the game, it was in the factory, and the game transitioned from you going up the stairs on the tower, and then there was this like tunnel that it transitioned you into. But when it transitioned, it was weird because it kind of like stops you, and then you have to figure out you have to go backwards into the tunnel and then side scroll. And I got stuck there. I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do.
They do change the perspective pretty quickly on you
Yeah.
in certain areas. I mean, you could be doing over the top. All of a sudden, it's side scrolling, and then it's behind you within a good 2-3 minute span.
Yeah.
So
For the most part, though, I feel like it was a pretty smooth transition, and side scrolling wasn't bad either.
yeah, I think
Yeah, I
Jay said
remember.
he liked that.
Yeah, the first time it happened, I was like, oh, that's weird. What's happening? And then in general, I thought it was very smooth and not jarring. But a time or two when the perspective switched, I was like, wait, like confused about the directions. And now where do I go? But in general, I liked it.
It was really creative because there's not a whole lot of games that do that. I can only think of like a couple off the top of my head, but like it's just interesting how it sort of blends genres a little bit.
And you kind of
Yeah.
just get used to it.
Yeah, and the only thing I didn't like, and I think Frost would agree with me, is that when it shifts to like a top-down view, that always made it just difficult for me to manage combat or anything that was going
Really?
on during that.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't love that either.
Oh, I didn't mind the top down,
Hmm.
especially in like the flying
Yeah,
missions.
not so much the flying, but I think
Just
there was even
as a
few times
person.
while you were,
Traversing.
yeah.
You mean like
Uh,
the factory one where the robots would jump into their death?
Oh yeah, yeah. That fucked with
That
me.
was, yeah.
They yeeted themselves into the lava.
The last part of the gameplay was the gliding. It took me a minute to figure that out because I literally jumped off a building and just smacked straight to the ground. I'm like, oh, if you just hold it, your little robot will just carry you down. Because that little guy.
I'm laughing because I remember like I did the same thing where it took me a while to figure out you can glide, and like if you fall long enough, they go into like the skydive motion. So it's
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
like a splat.
I was like, great, I'm dead.
Yeah. There was another time. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the mechanics is the black box. So you can like click in both of the sticks to self-destruct. And I was trying. There's this one side quest where you have to do a race, and I had read that if you like do a black box self-destruction in midair while you're falling, you get like a speed boost, and that makes it easy to do that quest. And so I tried that, and it didn't work. So then, like, not only did I splat onto the ground, but I also like blew up in midair. And,
You lost the race.
and you know, you're like
And he lost the race.
you're mostly naked if you once you do that. So it's just like this is a the walk of shame kind of.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could do that. I didn't know you could just self-destruct.
Well, Rich, you missed out because when you do that as 2B, her ass is hanging out. So
Holding, yeah, for the rest of the time.
I'll be right back. I gotta see this.
So the other outside of exploration, the other major aspect of the gameplay is the combat, and so it plays pretty standard to most action RPGs at its core. Like you have your heavy attacks and you have your light attacks, and you can like sort of use the dodge button with proper timing to do like counter attacks that do a lot of damage. The main thing that is different here, I think, is the pods and the pod programs. That was something really weird. So, like we said on the story segment, your characters are accompanied by these almost like cube-like flying drones with arms, and they can just like shoot things. And while you're holding R1, they continuously shoot. And then they have these pod programs that you can equip to them to do like different types of more damaging attacks. Like you start with a laser. Later on, you get one that lets you do like a blade storm all around you, that kind of thing. So that was really different. What did you guys think about the pods?
I liked them. Like we talked about, I mean, holding R1 for our whole entire lives got a little old. You
Yeah.
know, it was like, all right, my like finger's about to fall off. So that was a little annoying, but I liked them. They were like a cute little floaty little cube, you know. I
Yeah.
like the different pod programs. I thought that was neat.
I think they
So
were a more violent version of Navi.
Yeah. What if Navi had a cannon?
Yeah.
What about you, Rich? Did you like the pods or no?
I didn't really get too deep into the pods, like customization and everything. I turned that sucker on to auto and just let it go. That's
You could
basically
do
all I
that.
did.
I knew you could do that on easy, but
Yeah, that's what it did. Easy. I was on easy mode.
oh yeah, I forgot.
I do want to say, like, this game itself, I think, set up the combat style for Final Fantasy 15. Anybody notice that the weapons disappearing and stuff just act like 15?
Well, it's made by the same company because I know I said this last
Yeah.
week, but you can actually get Noctis's sword as a weapon in the game,
Yeah.
the engine blade. So I have to wonder like how much they influenced each other, if at all.
Yep.
Maybe they shared notes.
Yep. Don't
um,
copy me. Just change it just a little bit.
right.
And that's what
I
happened.
will say though, I think 15's battle system is significantly more fluid than this game's. Um,
Yes.
there's also I think at the beginning of the game, for the first while, I felt like the enemies were too powerful. Because I felt like I could only take 2 or 3 hits before I was about to die. And so I relied on the pods really heavily through like the first, few 10 hours of the game, something like that. And then eventually you get leveled up enough because I was doing a bunch of side quests and things where like you can take risks and go in for those killing blows. But it was interesting.
Hey, Lauren, which pod program did you use the most?
I like the laser one, I think. There was a laser one. I also
Did
had one equipped that I didn't really know how it worked, so I don't it was like it would form like a half dome of like electricity. I don't know what that was,
I know
but
what you're talking about.
yeah. So I don't know if I really utilized them to their full extent, but just to like have the gun on there, like the little Gatling gun or whatever. I thought that was useful. And then to kind of echo what you said, Scott, when I first started playing the game, I was like, this is hard. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this game. So I turned it on easy and used auto chips, and then would occasionally do that throughout the game when I was like, I don't want to like engage in some big battle right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've avoided enemies quite a bit too, especially at the beginning. Um, you can also trade out like what pod you have equipped. So like on top of your special attack or whatever, like the one you get at the start fires these like pew pew little bullets, but then you can get one later that shoots like a wave of energy,
Hmm.
and then there's one later which fires missiles. I didn't care for that one so much, but the energy wave I used quite a bit. So it's just a neat twist, I guess you can say, on what would otherwise be like a pretty generic combat system. You also get items that heal you up if standard action RPG stuff. You can use them mid battle and all that. And later we'll talk about chips more in a minute, but later you get a chip that lets you auto use items like auto potion, which was awesome. One of the best chips.
Yep.
Um, so anything other thoughts on combat before we go on to some other aspects?
Just the hacking thing, I guess, if that would belong in this category, the little hacking games that you had to do. Initially, I was like, oh, that's nifty. Like, that's kind of like switching it up. And then it was like really, again, like really repetitive. I'm like, oh my
Yep.
God.
I was like, I really just don't want to do this right now.
Yeah.
I think Jay said he did not like it. I think he was not a fan of doing the hacking and stuff because it's pretty powerful to do that stuff. You can literally just hack 2 or 3 times and blow the thing up. So I did use it a lot. What are the
I
fastest
did.
way to kill somebody?
I did it a lot too, but I was just like this again. Like
Yeah.
initially, it was like, oh, it was a way to distinguish the second route. You're like, oh, like I'm 9S now. I can like I'm a robot. I can get in their heads. But and it got a little old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of
Um,
wore on me pretty quick.
Hmm.
I agree with everything you guys said. Um, the only other, even the bosses, you could do like if you were successful 3 or 4 times, you were close to killing them usually.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that I thought was funny, I learned in the Discord from somebody that like there's a lock on button, and then you could also rotate the little ship freely with the right stick, and I was like, I'd already been well into Route B at that point. I was like, I didn't know that. That's why it's so fucking hard.
Oh yeah.
you know. Um, And then so, but it does ask you to do that a lot. Like you got to do it to open chests. A lot of the quests ask you to do it on random things, and then like it's 9S is the most effective way to fight. So it's like you end up just doing it constantly. So yeah, it does get old. And then I guess one other major aspect of the quote unquote combat is randomly throughout the game it'll give you these shooter flight segments wherein you're like sort of like a mech suit kind of, and then it turns suddenly into like a bullet hell game, like top down, things flying at you from every direction, and you got to rotate and shoot things flying at you. Think like asteroids on steroids.
Yep.
And I know this is like a whole subgenre, but it's another segment or example of how this game likes to like suddenly switch the genre on you to break up the gameplay, I guess you could say.
It's like they took a lot of genres together and just smashed them together and said, "Here you go. Here's a game."
Do you think that they had like like a dartboard with different video game genres on it, and they were like, "Okay, we're going to incorporate that genre."
Yep, that's basically what happened. Or
The
a
employee
wheel.
Yeah, or a wheel.
Either
Yeah.
or.
The employee of the month got to pick the genre that was added.
Hey, that'd be a pretty cool thing to do. Is like a company, a gaming company. You know, you get to, if you're employee of the month, you get to pick something that goes in this game, and it doesn't make any sense. It'd be that one guy that's there's like, you know what? I don't even care. Just pick something stupid.
Everybody gets
Pokemon.
pissed off. They're like, God damn it, Bob got it. He's going to pick a fucking potato.
Yeah.
Freaking Bob.
Corey, am I right in remembering that you enjoyed the flight segments quite a bit?
Oh, I loved them. I really liked them, especially when you take on that boss that comes out of the water that you have
Oh,
to shoot
the
with
big
the
whale.
ship, and it like the camera is real cinematic and it like follows you around while you're like tracking the boss. I thought that was really cool.
The Decepticon.
Yeah.
Usually those segments also involve like some kind of grand like set piece of the story and like some kind of giant boss. So like they end up feeling really epic.
Yeah. Even the non-boss ones though, I still liked.
Yeah. Corey was better at them than me. So so that's basically the combat. It's very interesting, but I guess now we should probably talk about some of the menus and like the different things you can do in the menu. And I always made Corey do all this because I hate like having to spend long amounts of time just tweaking my equipment and all that stuff. So I let Corey do it.
What is wrong with you?
So he
Yeah,
gets
you-
to talk about this.
The level to which you hate that stuff is so entertaining to me. Like any like character upgrades, like modifying weapons, you're like, no, like I'm not doing
not
it.
doing it. I'm just sticking to the default.
Okay.
But no, you like you said, you can upgrade several things in this game. So first off, your weapons. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I only remember like a couple places where you could buy weapons. So I didn't really change actual weapons that much. There was that
Also,
one
you were
guy,
always bitching that I hadn't found the materials you needed.
the fucking water drops or the oil or something. I just never could get them. But once I bought the weapons, I only remember being able to like buy new weapons. Like two different swords and maybe a couple other pieces from the one guy in that main area. So there was that, but they were definitely big upgrades from the default weapons once you bought them. And then once you buy the weapons, you can actually like go back to the guy and level them up. And I think you could level them up to, I think each one was different, but I think it was like level 4 or level 5. But you had to use your material, and then once you leveled them up, your the attack damage from each one would increase. Sometimes they would change the little look on the menu. You could also upgrade your pod, so you could buy new chips, and then you have this. I forget what the game actually called it, but it was the section where you put the chips in, and you could buy like more memory space basically for your pod. And then as you bought more memory space, you could buy more chips. And it was basically like a stat boost, like raise your defense, raise your attack, raise your evade. But then there was really cool chips that like the auto heal, which I made sure to keep on at all times because that was just super useful.
Auto heal and the auto pickup; those were the best ones.
Yeah, and the auto pickup. So you can do a bunch of cool stuff with your pod, upgrading your pod.
You can also like choose to like unequip. Some of the chips have parts of your HUD, like your health meter, that type
Mini
of thing.
map, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the chip mechanic quite a bit. Like when I first started playing, I was like, I felt overwhelmed, like pods, chips, like what is all of this? But then I had like the three like customized
Mhm.
chip settings. So I enjoyed that a lot. I liked that part of it.
Yeah, there was a couple times where once I figured out you could what the set piece was you basically it memorizes your pattern and you can just go back and like quickly re-equip it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few times where I'd just go in and like take off all the chips and like
Mm-hmm.
let's just see what new stuff we have. And I've made poor Scott, I made him make like a spreadsheet with all the chips that I had in inventory, which
Oh my
ones I
God.
had equipped, how much space they cost. And I was like, all right, we're
Wow.
going to optimize this thing. And
It
then I
almost
learned
turns
that there
into like
was an
its own
optimize
little.
button.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was a thing where, and I think you could say play style, like defensive, like aggressive, and it would just auto arrange the chips that you had. So
Mhm.
I did use that.
Sometimes though it still left like free space, so I'd have to like go in and like
Fill little
add,
stuff in.
yeah, fit stuff in. So I was like, Scott, I need you to just make me a spreadsheet. And
Real
so one
quick.
night we just put down everything, and I had that thing optimized, and we were good to go.
It turns into like its own little meta game of trying to figure out how you can fit in everything to to this chip space. I guess
Mhm.
it is a cool mechanic though. I would say.
Yeah, I really liked it.
If you played it right, like I did not do. I did not know that you could. I did not know you could buy upgrade space and stuff like that. So I was
You
in the
didn't
bare
upgrade your
minimum.
space at
Hell
all?
no, I didn't do that. I'm like, I'm gonna optimize it with the little tiny space that I got. Just-
Rich, did you
Jeez.
put on like one of the Yorha bandanas over your eyes before you played this game every time? Is that-
I did. I'm like, you know what? We're just gonna go. We're just
He
gonna.
played
And,
it in cosplay.
Yeah.
I have my mini skirt. It's fine. I
He
have good
was to
legs.
be.
I have good legs. So yeah, I did not do this properly apparently. So I'm with Scott. If you get too complicated of a mechanic to it, I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing this. You cannot force me. How dare you?
See, I
So
love that shit. I will take all the time it takes to upgrade.
We
It makes you
definitely stopped for
stronger
like.
and makes the game go better.
It's
yeah,
true, but
it
it's
does.
also true that like there was a few 2 or 3 times at least where we spent 20, 30 minutes just in the menus.
Well, I had to make
Jesus.
sure we were optimized.
So did you cover the equipment as well already, or
Uh, no, but I mean,
There's not
there's
really
not.
equipment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not really a lot of quote unquote equipment
should have
other than
mentioned
like your
this?
weapons and the pieces that you pick up.
There's also like you can get some accessories that like sort of it's like a customizes your appearance a little bit, but I didn't mess with those at all. I don't even
I
know
don't
which
think.
ones there
Oh,
are.
Yeah, I don't think. I didn't even think I knew
I didn't
that
know about that.
existed.
That sounds okay. So like customize it how?
So like you could put a bow on Intubi's hair, or like I think you can get the Emil
What?
mask that you can wear,
Really?
stuff like that.
Oh, I was
Did
not
not
aware
know
of
that
that.
was a thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So there's nothing to do with the story.
yeah. It's just you can make yourself look even more ridiculous than you already do,
Yes.
basically.
Oh, well, all right.
Going back to the weapons real quick. So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like if you went into the weapon, each one had a little story, like about the backstory of the sword and like its origin and stuff. And some of those were kind of interesting. I didn't read
Really?
all of them, but they like provided a little bit of backstory on
I
like
don't. I don't think I
the
read them.
original owner of those, stuff like that. It was cool.
Well,
I
that's
knew
neat.
about those, but I don't think we ever looked at any. So.
Yeah, I don't think we ever read any of them.
But I'm currently trying to 100% the game, but I'm stuck because, well, I'll talk about this here in a minute. But like I'm trying to get a rare fish, so
The fucking
didn't-
fishing.
Dude, the fishing, no, I'm not into that at all.
Pass.
here's the thing: like the fishing's super easy. It's not complicated. There's no like buttons. It's like you as soon as the bobber goes down, you press A and you get the fish typically. Um, but the thing
Pass.
is, like, it's totally random as far as like which fish you get, and there's different fish in different areas. So there's like one fish in the desert oasis. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I think I've literally probably spent 3 or 4 hours so far just fishing, trying to
Oh
get
my
it.
god.
I think
And
I
it's
fished twice, and it was because it was required.
yeah,
I tried to fish. There was like a rare pod program or something like that, like in the flooded region, or there was something. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to try to get that. And then I tried for like 5 minutes and I was like, well,
I
not
guess I'm
going to
not
happen.
getting that.
Yeah.
that's probably the best thing you can get from fishing is there's a unique pod somewhere out in that flooded city. I did get it. It didn't take me that long, so maybe I was lucky. But yeah. So another cool mechanic is I guess they took this from Dark Souls ish games, but if you die, you can find you lose all your chips and all your money and all that. and so you have to go and find where you died, where your body was, and then you like sort of reabsorb it, and you get your shit back. So it's like adds a level of risk to dying, I guess. Although, except only remember dying like a handful of times total.
Yeah, and I made sure that you went and got our body because of all the work I put in on the pod ships.
Yeah, I didn't die very often, but one of the times that I did, I had a hard time. Because how we were talking about the gliding, I didn't utilize it. There was a tall, like, not a water tower, but like a radio tower, like in the ruined city,
Yeah.
and I just like jumped off like a psychopath. Like I don't know why I did that, but anyway, like died, and then my body wasn't where I thought it would be, and I was like freaking out because I was like, dude, if I lost
Yeah.
all that stuff just now, but yeah, I found it.
Um, that's funny that you mentioned that because isn't there like a side quest later where like a machine does suicide off that tower?
Yes, it's a really sad. Like you go and find all these like machines that are super depressed and like, what is the point of living? You know, it's like
Just like
oh,
me.
And then they just yeet
like real
themselves.
life. Yeah.
Um, and then speaking of the fishing, there's also these random mooses and warthogs everywhere. So you can kill them for certain materials. I think I killed a couple right at the beginning just because there was a trophy for it or something. But then not too far into the game, you do get the ability to like tame them, and so you can use them to like ride around everywhere.
We named our mooses.
You can
Aw.
tame them?
Yeah, you can ride them.
Yeah, you can ride them.
I did
You
not
ride
play
all
this
the
game
animals.
right at all.
Apparently not.
I didn't care. Like, I don't think Jay knew about that either.
You could ride a moose.
Oh my God.
I discovered it accidentally. Like I was standing next to one and then I just hopped on up. So yeah.
I think that you can feed them bait to tame them, but the thing that lets you do it automatically whenever you want, that might be a side quest reward, if I'm remembering
Oh,
right.
okay.
I just murdered them. I didn't know you could tame them.
That poor moose.
Yeah.
Especially in the desert, that big desert area, being able to ride those warthogs sped things up a little bit. So that was kind of like a cool mechanic, but also kind of weird that's in the game, I guess. We already talked about the black box. I'm sort of jumping around a little bit here, but on top of recovering your own body, you can also recover random android corpses that you find and get their shit. And I think if you have the online turned on, you can find where other people died and get some of their shit.
Yeah. And you can even turn them on to fight with you. Briefly.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I use them as cannon fodder.
There you go.
I just go die again.
I should have also mentioned this before, but when you're hacking machines, if you hack them stealthily, like before they realize you're there, you get the option of like either controlling the machine or having it fight for you, or just having it blow up. I didn't discover that until I was like almost done with Route B, because I guess I just never been stealthy up to that point. There's a trophy for that too that I gotta work on at some point. So that was kind of a cool mechanic. It was actually kind of interesting because it's like every machine in the game, just about non-boss machine, is technically playable through that mechanic. So
Yeah.
that had to have been a lot of work. So another weird extra mechanic is there's extra endings on top of the 5 canon endings, and they often involve like going somewhere you're not supposed to during certain parts of the story. So it's like endings F through Z, and it would just be like, but they came across as pointless because you would just get like, it would fade to a black screen and it would give you like a little blurb of text, something like 2B decided the machine village wasn't worth saving, and so she wandered off into the horizon and was never seen again, things like that. And then you just get really fast credits.
Yeah. Most of them were like reach a certain point and then turn around and go back the other direction.
Yep.
Like things that
Yeah,
wouldn't make sense to do story wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy these at all, and I just really didn't understand the purpose. Like, and I don't know, I can't envision a player that would be like that would love that. You know, like who is that for? I'm not sure. It just felt like really unnecessary to me.
They were hell bent on finishing the alphabet.
This
think
is the
that's what it
Bob
was.
mechanic.
It was the Bob
Bob.
mechanic. God damn it, Bob.
Damn it.
I mean, not only that, but like if you happen to stumble across one and you haven't saved in a minute, then you go back to your last save point. So that
Yep.
was a time, even if you did save right before, it's just like felt like it's wasting your time, kind of.
Right.
So that was like a negative for me. Although Kai in the Discord said the craziness that is Yoko Taro, any one of those endings could be turned into a spinoff one day. So
Oh, really?
Oh.
Wow.
he's crazy like that. Another mechanic that comes up a lot, but especially, or not that often, but starts to become more common later in the game, is you'll get like these huge story blurbs where it's just walls of text. It occasionally gives you like a choice during the text, but it's almost like it's like going into another genre again. But there weren't that many choices, and also it kind of seems like those things should have been cutscenes, and they like ran out of time or budget or something.
Yeah, I
Anybody?
prefer getting a lot of info like in a cutscene rather than reading like a novel. I would rather that information kind of be revealed in like a cutscene or in-game dialogue, like as you're running around, kind of fill in the backstory
Hmm.
that way. Yeah, I didn't love this, and a lot of times I was just like blah blah, skippity dippity, just trying to get
Even
through it.
Let's get through this.
even one of the main endings is like 75% a wall of text.
Ugh.
Um,
Yeah.
um, and like you learn all about A2 and Anemone's backstory through one of those, and then Devola and Popola. I think 75% of their story is in one of those.
Yeah,
um,
and it did feel a little lazy, or like you're saying, like they ran out of time or something. I just don't know why you would choose to go that route, but
yeah,
That's another one of
um,
those genres they put together, basically.
yeah,
So
genre
here you go,
soup.
wall of text. Well, they probably figured out that like all that backstory and all those cutscenes would take a good amount of time and add an extra amount of time to the game itself. So, I mean, imagine trying to do cutscenes for all that.
Yeah,
yeah, and it already wasn't a short game, so I'm sure that that would have added a bit of time to it.
yeah. And then finally, there are side quests, but we've got our own little subsection down here in just a little bit. But as you go through the game, you unlock side quests and can complete them, and level up and get all kinds of goodies and shit. So that's basically it for the gameplay. But I guess I've got a section here if we want to talk about individual enemies that you can encounter. It's Rich's section technically, but there's a link here in the doc if you want to see a list of enemies. The problem is that this list doesn't have pictures, so it's like reading the
Yeah.
names doesn't really tell us anything.
Well, okay, the enemies are pretty breaking down. We can break them down to just categories. I mean, you've got your little minion robots, just the little hub guys that bounce
The
around.
stubbies.
Yeah, we call them stubbies. And then you have the big night ones, the really kind of
Yeah.
yeah, bear size. And then you have the stacking ones,
Yeah, those
those
are
little
pretty easy.
guys. Yeah,
Usually you can just shoot them.
the big snake looking ones.
Those are the
Oh,
hardest
God.
ones.
Fuck
Yeah,
those
I hate
guys.
those
Scary.
guys. Yeah, nope, don't like those. What else is there? The big Goliath ones.
Yeah, the ones that like spin their arms around and like are towering over you.
Yeah, and then they could all of a sudden shift them to their feet. Oh, that was
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, those are just the main ones that you run across in the game itself. I mean, with some variations depending on the area that you're at, such as the kingdom.
Yeah,
Some of them
so
look like knights and medieval.
And they would charge at you.
Yeah, and they'd scream at you. Um,
Attack.
yeah, and that's really it. I mean, then you have your animals, and then you have your bosses, and then you have
There's
Yeah.
also the flying ones that were
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
annoying at points. I thought it was interesting how in the amusement park most of the machines are friendly, at least at first, and it took me a minute to realize that I don't. There's no reason I have to be killing these guys. So I felt kind of a little bad after that.
Didn't know
Yeah,
about
one
that.
of one of my times going through there, because I like loved the peaceful machines, like I thought that was so cute, I loved that. And then one time I was going through the amusement park and I had auto chips turned on, and then it was a massacre, and I was like, no, like I don't want to do it. But once it had started, I had to finish them off because then they were attacking me, so that was
straight up
sad.
murder. You
So
just
No, I
ruined a
felt
children's
bad.
party.
Another
Good job,
thing-
yeah.
When I first got to the amusement park, I didn't know they were peaceful, and I just started blowing their asses up. And then I realized I was like, wait a minute, they're not shooting at me. What's going on? I was like, oh, I just killed half of them for no reason.
So this is actually, I'm glad this came up because one thing you can do when 9S and 2B are together is whichever one you're not playing, you could sort of set how you want them to behave, their AI. And so I
Oh,
usually
yeah.
kept them on aggressive because when they're set to aggressive, they like take care of 75% of the enemies for you. They're just on top of it.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
But in the amusement park, aggressive means they attack the friendly machines. So like I would warp into the amusement park and then the ally would just start going ham. I'm like, wait.
Like, 2B, stop.
Yeah. Um, so that was funny. Uh, so yeah, there's a lot of enemy variety, but at the same time, it's like a lot of variations on the same 6 or 7 enemy types, I guess you could say. Um, but I do have a list of bosses here, and it's mostly in chronological order as far as the story goes. Are there any bosses that like stand out for you guys in particular?
Adam and Eve trying to
What
be models. I mean, what's up with that?
I
Yeah.
know. Get your
Naked.
perfect bodies and
I
your
mean,
platinum hair out of here.
they're super low rise skinny jeans and no shirts and get out here with that mess.
What
Um,
was the boss that was in the amusement park, like in the theater? The lady
Oh,
Wanted
the
one?
one that
to be
wanted to be a
must be
performer.
more beautiful.
That one was like pretty nuts. I enjoyed that one. It was scary.
I think it's called Beauvoir,
Oh, I
but
see it on the list. Yes,
she
yes.
that was a really cool boss because like the music going during that part's really epic, and like her dress is literally made of android corpses. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's very like horror movie, that one boss, like all the
Hmm.
corpses all around and stuff. Yeah, I that one sticks out in my mind as being kind of unique.
yeah,
It was the only one that I think that was the unique one to it that actually had any, you know, style to it. The rest of them were just easy and whatever.
the first time, well, not the first one, but when you fight Adam and Eve together on the spaceship, it's like a side scroller fight, and the fight itself is pretty unremarkable, but it stands out in my mind because during it, seems to be delivering all this important exposition, and I'm just like, I'm busy, but I want to hear what you're saying, but I can't.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
kind of frustrating.
yeah, it's like, can we separate the two? Like, why are you telling me all this vital info like while you're trying to murder me? Like, let's
Yeah,
try and like separate the two.
yeah. We talked about the Eve fight, which is like the final boss of routes A and B. Um, Pretty unremarkable, I would say, for a what kind of feels like such an important boss battle.
The
Um,
cinematic parts were cool, like him
yeah,
getting taken over by the black like plague and eyes turning red, and
yeah,
Did you ever tell like what that was? Like
I
all of
don't
a
think so.
sudden they're just like, hey, I've got this disease now.
I was like,
yeah.
he's
Got
becoming
Here you
venom.
corrupted.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, just got corrupted somehow, I guess.
Anytime you were fighting another like android, also I felt like that was kind of overwhelming. Like when you have to fight Operator 210 or A2, especially, and this is like a big letdown, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more. But the final boss is a pushover. Feels like a big letdown. It's either A2 or 9S depending on which character you play. And it's like it's built up to this epic moment. It's like it's over in seconds. That was disappointing. Other than that, the only one that really stands out in my mind is that right before the final boss, when you're switching back, it switches back and forth between A2 and 9S against those two spherical robots.
Oh yeah,
Um, that was
Easy.
it was easy, but it was also I thought that was really cool just cinematically.
the
Um,
visuals of that part were absolutely amazing.
until you get towards the end and you end up killing one of the machines much earlier than the other one, and then it keeps forcing you to switch back
Like
over
I
and
did.
over anyway. Yeah.
It's like it'll switch over to 2B and I'm there for like 2 seconds. It's like, oh, let's go back to 9S and see what's going on there.
Yeah. So even though a lot of these bosses feel like pretty unremarkable, I would say a lot of them are like big set pieces of the game and like pretty cool parts.
Mhm.
So then the last little section on gameplay here is I have a list of all the side quests. It's hard to like.
Jesus Christ.
We're not going to talk about every one of them.
We're going to
Just
go
like
through each one and
Didn't we just
discuss
talk about wall
everyone
of text?
in
Come on.
detail.
yeah. Lauren and I actually did do all the side quests.
Of course you did.
For those that don't know, Lauren is also a completionist like myself. Was
Rich,
It's a
see what I
curse.
deal with.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a
sorry,
curse.
dude. That's just bad. I mean, I didn't touch a single side quest. You're like, we don't do side quests. I'm like, wasn't gonna do it.
didn't even discover half the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, no.
Let alone side quests.
Neither did Jay. Let's just put it out there. Jay did not do the same thing. He did not touch side quests.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think he did it all.
what I will say is my favorite side quest was called Wandering Couple. Even though the gameplay of itself was kind of annoying because it makes you like you basically have to track this refugee couple all over the map several different times, and you end up finding out that I'm really shortening the story here, but the female partner in this android couple has been like routinely doing factory resets on the male because she doesn't like his personality or something, and so she's always like trying to make him more like the man she wants or something like that. It's pretty fucked up.
It is. That was also my favorite side quest. And it starts out like kind of dull. A lot of these side quests aren't very memorable. They're kind of just like dull. But that one, as you read like the text and like realized what was going on, it was like, damn, like that's it's pretty dark. So
Yeah.
I that was my favorite one too, I think.
There's a series of side quests where you have to fight this one like dojo robot on top of a roof, and he progressive. You find parts for him, and he gets progressively like a bigger and bigger machine. The fights get harder and harder. Um, I mentioned
That
the
took a lot
race
of
one.
time.
Yeah,
That
it
yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah, that took a lot of time because he became so leveled up by the end. I was like, okay, so this is going to be going for an hour. So um
I ended up
the
waiting
race
once he got to a certain point of how
yeah.
difficult he was.
Yeah.
The race was fucking hard. Like I had to wait until I had like a bunch of speed up chips, and even then I like barely got it.
I had to look up how to do that because I was just like failing over and over. I hate anything time based, so I already was like at a disadvantage. And
Yeah,
then I looked it up and I was like, well, let me just wait till later in the game, like when I have more like chips and stuff.
yeah,
I had to watch Scott try that for like an hour.
yeah. It was something. I'm looking down the list here, seeing if any of these
The
names.
parade escort. How do you not talk about that one?
Oh my God. Talk about that was really difficult. I had to do that several times.
We
You
did
unlock
too.
it. That quest unlocks like way earlier, unless you've been power leveling or something. Then you're actually ready to do it. And so that was another one I waited like till I tried it a few times and couldn't get it, just so I had to wait till later.
That was the only side quest that I tried and immediately stopped because
It's not a good
I
one to
didn't.
start
He's like,
with.
this is not for me.
I didn't realize like how steep of a level curve that was. Like I tried that and I was like, oh, I'll do this, and then I stepped out and took a left turn trying to follow these things and just got murdered. I was like, well, we're done. We're not gonna do this.
Forget side
So,
quests. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
bad one to attempt. Like, yeah.
Especially early on.
yeah. I was not prepared. I think I can't remember what level it was. I think there were like 10 plus levels above me. So
Jesus.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was
you
not a
got
good.
massacred then.
Yep.
Because I think
Stupid
it took us, we
robots.
had to level above them.
Yeah.
Stupid robots.
um, One thing we should have mentioned earlier, maybe, or we forgot completely in the story section. There's a character named Emil who's like this. It's the signature like head thing that you see everywhere in all the marketing material. But apparently, Lauren, you'll find this interesting. I think if you don't do the side quests, like you never even meet him beyond that first scene where he rolls away. Because
Wow.
we were talking. I brought up Emil in his shops at one point, and Jay was like, "Who's Emil?" So,
What you can get really, really legit stuff at his shop. And I was looking into a meal, and that's a tie to the original NieR game,
mhm.
apparently.
I
Yeah.
don't know how
So
it ties back, but apparently,
uh, yeah.
I think I don't you have to like catch him to get him to stop to do stuff, like to use his shop.
you have to shoot his shot as
Yeah,
it
that's what I thought.
rolls
I
around.
did that. I didn't know who he was. I just saw this robot zipping around over there. I'm like, what the hell's that guy? I'm gonna go kill him.
You
So
And
can
then he
do
wants to
a.
sell you things.
yeah, I was like, all right, cool. This is
Plays
a
that
weird
obnoxious
robbery.
song as he drives through the city. But Jay
No.
didn't even know about the shop, so I was really surprised by that.
Sad.
Um, there is a side quest you can do with him where you have to find those glowy flowers all over the world.
Oh, God,
That was
yeah.
pretty interesting. And apparently, there's a side quest that unlocks after you beat the game where you can. He's like the final super boss of the game, like the hardest enemy that you can face.
What? Yeah,
I
pass.
have not done that yet because obviously I have more important fish to fry. Get it?
Jesus. Get out. Turn your camera off.
But so, I'll get to that eventually. And then finally, I haven't done any of these yet because, but there's like these, there's a few tournament areas throughout the world that were apparently part of the DLC, um, and but I haven't done them because one of them you have to be at like level 99 to have a hope of a
Ugh,
chance. So
gross.
yeah, but that's it for the side quests. There's probably a couple others if I really thought. I was like, oh, that was really interesting because a lot of them end in like this really like melancholy. They end badly or sadly, I guess,
Hmm.
or the opposite, like very happily, like oh, that was so cute. They even have like these unique songs that play at the end of some of the side quests. But yeah, so that's about it for the gameplay. So do we want to go over like some of our overall thoughts before we move into the rating? Like, what did everybody feel just about how fun it was to play the game?
I mean, I enjoyed it. Other than, we've already kind of hashed out some of our grievances, such as the getting arthritis in our finger from holding R1 down for hours upon hours. But I mean, overall, I enjoyed especially like traversing the map. I feel like they did a really good job with adding the gliding, the I mean, the super fast running. I really liked being able to do that. The being able to fast travel between the machines, like they look like soda machines. I
Yep.
thought that was really neat. Um,
I'm glad you
I
mentioned
think
that
that
because we hadn't brought that up yet. The fast travel.
yeah, the fast travel was super helpful. I feel like the world design was great. It was, I mean, visually pleasing. I mean, there was no like jarring parts that I can really remember. Um, one part that did suck was when you were in the factory after the power went out. Trying to get through
Oh my
that
god.
maze was a nightmare. They could have done a little something better with that. But overall, no, I mean, overall, an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, the game, it reminds me a little bit of like a book you were assigned to read in high school that you never would have picked up. Like I never would have picked up Tale of Two Cities. I wouldn't have picked it up, but I got assigned, even though I did nominate this, so that doesn't really work. But like I am glad that I played it. Did I like love it the whole time? No, but I'm glad that I played it. I thought it had enough going for it that I was pretty, into it the whole time. I never wanted to just put the controller down and quit. So yeah, happy to have played it, and it's so like beloved in the gaming community. I feel by so many people, so it kind of feels like one that you should play if you like video games at some point. So you can check this one off the list now.
There you go. What about you, Rich?
So this is your fault, Lauren. Your fault I'm playing this game.
I'll
Why?
log off.
Yeah.
I'll leave the Zoom.
No, and I agree. This is a game that I definitely would not play. Looking at the cover art to it and some of the things, I was like, this is not really for me. Playing it, I'm glad I played it, only because, like Lauren said, it's something that you have now, at least experience. So there was no photo mode, was there, in this game? I just thought about that. Is
I don't think
no
so.
photos?
I
It
don't
was a
remember
way to
there being
take
one.
pictures.
Oh,
Oh, there was.
I took a picture.
no.
Hmm.
I was
Maybe
gonna
there
say
is. I
like
don't
that.
remember the one.
I was like, it's gonna be a really good game if it didn't have if
I
it
don't
had
think it
this
was an
photo mode.
actual photo mode. I think it was for like a side mission or something. You like had to
Oh,
take a picture of a river or a creek or something.
not like
Oh
your traditional
yeah,
yeah,
photo
yeah.
mode.
Yeah, I don't
photograph.
think
I
it
think
was
it was called
traditional.
photographs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just glad it doesn't have that photo mode feature where everybody's just taking pictures of crap. They probably did that for a reason, so nobody's like taking pictures of A2's skirt the entire time.
Oh my
So
god.
You definitely wouldn't have done that, right, Rich?
no, no, I didn't do that. Like I said, I didn't even blow myself up to apparently run around naked. So I didn't know that was there. But it's a good game. Different play styles, different type of mechanics to it. Uh, I mean, different genres melded into one. It worked in a sense for this type of game. It was okay. It's not one of my top favorite games for sure. It just not my thing, but it's good. For those people that really like this, like, everybody said that it's a really, I see it all the time when people talk about this. I mean, there's really good cosplays. There's people just love this game. So I'm not dogging
About
it
everything
for
we will
them.
be playing near Replicant. So
Yay. I've got it pre-ordered. Why? Thank you, Lauren, again for
Frost
this.
asks,
magical
are you just gonna buy those trophies? So I guess it is one cool thing. If you really want to get the platinum, you could just go to an in-game shop and buy the trophies.
Yeah. I
Oh
might do
really?
that.
You're gonna do that? Is that what you said?
No. I'm not putting this game back up for a long time. Like if I'm bored out of my mind and there's nothing else, everything else is broken, I might play this game.
Everything else is broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Colin says
everything.
he didn't get past the first checkpoint. The game bored him. That's interesting because I feel like the opening was kind of slow, but I was too intrigued to like be bored at the beginning. I guess you could.
Yeah,
say.
it was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you just like, okay, what is this thing? Like this is kind of odd. And then it does lose me towards like the end of it. And it's kind of like, this is kind of dumb. But yeah, at least
Yeah,
give it a chance.
a lot of these games I'm really into for the story aspect, and that did not carry over for me. So like at the end of the day, I was kind of let down by the game. But as far as the gameplay goes, I feel like 80-90% of the time it's pretty fun to play. So I was pretty positive on the gameplay overall, and it's interesting because it's got so many different genres thrown in, and it's like you're never doing the same thing minute to minute for too long. So yeah, I enjoy it. But I guess that's really all we have to say. Colin says definitely see why people love the game, just didn't click for me. Yeah, I get that. Like it's not really for a game that's made for everybody, I would say. But yeah, you guys ready to move on and rate this sucker?
Let's rate it.
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
Yay.
That's right, that's me. I cry from Bobby's Grabby's. But he put down dashing eight Bobby's Grabby's. China is copying in the Gabby's house this. There should publish normal with this how. How this is
Yeah, I agree that this is a bop. I could listen to
Easily Scott and Lauren's like favorite track of the game.
I love it. I love it. I want to walk down the aisle to that song. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah. It takes me right back.
I had to do like a technical challenge take home project at one point, and I think for like 75% of the time I was working on that, I was just listening to that song on repeat.
love
I
it
don't
so
get
much.
it.
I don't. Corey, why? Why?
I don't know. I just
You
don't
get it or
it.
you don't. Sorry.
I-
Not all
we
of us
don't
can have
get
great
it.
taste.
We
No.
don't get
Obviously.
it at all.
There's
People are
something not
enlightened,
clicking with
others
us, apparently.
aren't. But okay, so our categories that we're going to rate here are story, combat, non-combat, graphics, music and sound and voice acting, and overall feel. And then of course we have our bonus category that doesn't count, the final boss. And so I guess we will let Rich kick us off here. What do you think about the story, my man? Or what are you going to rate it?
I'm gonna get so much heat for this crap. This game score.
Yep.
I know.
Buckle up, bitch. Here I come.
I know. Let's go. 4. I mean, I just
4.
didn't.
Jesus.
I didn't get it. I just there's some pieces of the storyline that I really like. Okay, that's kind of cool. Like with the aliens not being alive technically anymore, and then like the machines already technically won the war in a sense. They were just kind of buying their time. Thanks, Jay, for putting that in there for the storyline for me to help figure that out. But it just that was it. No, I'm good. So
Okay.
it really wasn't. I was confused. Like Lauren says, I see her comments there. I was confused a lot of the time. Not minimum.
I would
was
insult
confused
your
a lot.
intelligence here, but it really is confusing and almost nonsensical.
Yeah,
at
I
some
mean,
point,
it's
so.
okay. So like the what was that show, Sunny, that Philadelphia show? I can't remember what it is. Like the guy that's Charlie's like on the wall, like putting yarn and stuff,
Yeah.
trying to connect it. That's me. Like I would have had to get a whiteboard and just started putting things together. I'm like, this connects here. I don't get this. So yeah, 4, definitely.
Okay. All right. What about you, Lauren?
So yeah, I feel pretty similarly to Rich. I rated it higher because I think I'm giving it like some benefits for the potential that the story had that ultimately it didn't deliver on. I felt kind of dumb at times because I was like, do I just not get it because this isn't a genre of game I usually play? Like, am I just like not clicking with it personally? Or so I'm glad to hear it wasn't just me. So I'm gonna give it a 6. So I liked the beginning. I didn't like hate the characters. I just didn't care enough about them. And I think that's because they weren't like developed well. There weren't a ton of cutscenes, lots of walls of text. So, and the confusion I felt about the plot kind of minimized like any reaction I was going to have emotionally. So,
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's like this game itself. It's like really high fancy people are like this. You just wouldn't get it. Simple people, you wouldn't understand. That's exactly what's going on. Like you wouldn't understand. You don't
Peasants.
get this. You peasants. Yeah. So that's how we feel. Just
what
don't
do you
get
think, Corey?
I'm gonna give it a 7. Reason being, I did enjoy how the story did kind of trap me at first. And unlike Rich, I enjoyed the twists of knowing that now actually the humans aren't on the moon anymore, and that the android war was already over. And
There were
I
definitely
kind
a
of
couple
liked it.
mindfuck twists.
Yeah, and I didn't mind those. I actually, for the most part, kind of enjoyed them. Typically, But I do have to um, take some points away because, like we kind of talked about when we first started, with the story, they definitely kind of fumbled at the 5 yard line there. They had plenty of potential, and it's like they just decided to sit on their hands.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that. Uh, Jay gave the game a 6, and he wrote here, I really like what they tried to do, but it wasn't put together well enough to really get it. So that's basically just about the same thing you guys, or we have all been saying.
Yeah, I mean those little mind fucks were really good, little points to it, just not enough. I mean, you can't just rely on those 3 little points.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Oh.
they kind of it- almost like a gut punch. It's like, wait, what the fuck? Like
Yeah,
enough to make me actually enjoy it a little bit more than because the story was a little stale once you get past the first few parts, and then I picked up again, and then kind of stale, and then fumble. But still,
Yeah.
overall, I mean, once you piece all of the pieces together, I kind of liked it.
nobody got time for
Um,
that.
I am going to give it a 7 because I don't think it's a bad story. I just am kind of like mourning the potential that didn't get realized, kind of. But the like I did feel something in my cold dead heart when at the ending of Route A and B when 2B thought 9S was gone permanently, and then also when 2B dies. And like some of the side quests are well developed, and I did care about a couple of the characters, Pascal and 9S. But like we've said over and over at this point, it falls apart at the end. So that's my score for that. Yeah. So next category is combat. Rich.
Combat, I didn't have a lot of complaints to it. I did like the shooting of the pods, the top down flight mech suits. I thought the combat was good. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
Only because I didn't see any issues with it. I really didn't.
All right. Lauren.
I'm gonna give it a 7. So this was a different combat style for me. Again, just this not being a typical game that I would play. I liked the diversity, how many styles there were. I thought that kept it interesting. Like we said, some of it was repetitive, the hacking, stuff like that. But I thought they did a good job of keeping it interesting in terms of the amount of styles of combat that were in the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Corey.
I'm going to agree with Rich and give it an 8. I really enjoyed it with the light attacks versus heavy attacks. Your pod had 2 different like attacks. You know, the Gatling plus it can send out like missiles and whatnot. So you had 2 different ways to use your pod. It was easy to get the hang of. I liked the animations for it, and like Rich said, I just didn't see much wrong with it. The only complaint for combat, it would have got a higher score from me, but the constantly holding R1.
Okay. And what was your score? I missed it. Sorry.
An 8.
An 8. Okay.
We agreed finally.
For once.
Jay gave the combat a 6. He said some mechanics were cool, loved the battle style, switching, overhead, bullet hell, etc. But it got boring fast, and I ended up just running past people as I got further into the game. Yeah, Jay was telling us all about how he was ignoring most enemies, and then and then he would complain about being under leveled, and I'm like, well, what did you expect?
He does that in every game.
I know.
Yeah, he does.
I'm gonna agree with Corey and say that the combat is pretty good and it's pretty fun. I had some learning curves towards the beginning, but I think the pod thing is really cool. Other than the fact that you have to switch, hold down the button so much. My only other main complaint would be like just how often you end up having to do hacking when you're playing as 9S. But overall, those things aren't huge complaints, I guess, for me. And so I thought the combat was pretty good, and I'm gonna stick with my 8 there. Next category is non-combat. Richie Rich.
All right, already taking 1 point off for fishing. Just get that out of there.
I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, if it had photo mode, it would have knocked another point right off there. The environments and everything were really good. I did like the amusement park. I thought that was really done well. The beach, like different areas of the game, were really good. So I'm gonna give it a 7. I I liked it. It didn't blow me away on various things with the game, but 7 I think is pretty fair.
Okay, Lauren.
I'm gonna give it an 8. I really loved the environment. Was probably one of my favorite aspects of the game because, like we said, the story was lacking a little bit. So at least you were in like a cool, pretty looking place. And like we said, it was kind of a closed open world, which I like because true open world is a little daunting and like overwhelming to me. So
Yeah.
this felt like an open world, but really it wasn't. I mean, there weren't that many locations you could travel to. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
Okay, I agree with what you said, Corey.
I'm going to go 8 as well. I really liked being able to explore the different areas, and I really liked how the each area was so different from the next. You had so many different environments in this kind of, like you said, kind of like a closed off arena that you could explore, but you always felt like it was completely open world because the environments were so different. I felt like the dialogues were cool with some of the conversations you had, especially with like um, the interactions between 9S and 2B, with her being like very curt and direct and to the point, and he's just like just wanting to be friends. I kind of felt like the comic relief there was fun. But yeah, overall, I think that was one of the best parts of the game.
Okay. Jay gave it a 7. It says, my favorite gameplay aspect. Loved the conversations and exploring post-apocalyptic Japan. Interesting that he wrote such positive statement about it and then gave it a 7, but okay. Um, for me, I'm going I'm going to give it an 8 just because I feel like you guys were saying, the world is fun to explore. I can't think of an area that was like boring necessarily to be in. The and it's fun to move around, like with all the dashing and the gliding and all the different ways you can get about, and jumping across buildings, things like that. And then the fishing, although it's annoying how they made some of them so rare. It's like very simple. You don't have to do it as well. Like if it had been more like 15's fishing, I would have been more annoyed by it because it's like more things to do and keep in mind. Um, then there's just like all kinds of like random little things you can do as far as like, you know, find bodies and ride animals, and they've got these side quests and these tournaments and things like that. So I'm pretty positive about it overall.
I just thought of one non-combat aspect I didn't care for either, and it was the main map on the start menu.
Oh, that's a good point. So
That
it
map
felt,
was really hard to decipher and
yeah,
figure out where you're supposed to be going.
especially if you were like in a sort of like an indoor area, it was almost impossible.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
like in the forest.
I didn't care for the map at all, and it was really hard for me to figure out where I needed to go. It was like a 3D kind of map, and you could really like adjust the angles, but I didn't care for it. No.
Yeah, I don't think it was detailed enough for what the game needed.
Also, on the mini map, you could set it to where it always points true north, which helps me like orient myself. But at the same time, if you were to open the main map, then it's not oriented the same way as your mini map. So it's like the maps were often very unhelpful. But yeah, so next category is graphics. Rich.
The graphics itself did not blow me away for sure. I don't know if it was supposed to look like that. I'm gonna give it a 5.
Damn. Okay.
I didn't feel like it was like super pretty. There were certain pieces of it, like I said, the music park looked really good. The beach looked really good, but everything else was kind of like really bland. I don't know if that was on purpose for that. It didn't
Okay.
seem like it was a PS4 game.
Lauren.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they were bad per se, the graphics, but they did feel like a little dated to me. Like it didn't feel like the game came out when it did. I found the colors to be like kind of washed out a little bit. Like everything just seemed a little desaturated. So not terrible, not great. I'm gonna give it a 6.
All right.
And I bet that's they did that on purpose, probably to make it look like that, but we just don't get it. So
Okay, it's too
an
artsy for
artistic
me.
choice.
yeah, we can't. We're not sophisticated.
What about you, Corey?
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna give it a 7 because I get what you're saying about the colors being kind of desaturated, and because there wasn't a whole lot of, I guess, bright spots in this game. Um, but overall, I also think that the color palette kind of matches the mood of the game in a way. Um, but all the places, I didn't have any complaints about how any of the places looked or any of that. But on this other hand, it's also like, well, there was nothing like super special about it either. Like there was no super standouts. So I just felt like 7 is a good, because there was nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't a home run either.
All right. Jay also gave it a 7. He said, it's all right, nothing special. PC had some bad and some slow rendering textures. Um, I'm also going to give it a 7. I think the game is like really pretty, but also what Lauren said about how it didn't feel like a PS4 game. It really does look like it might have almost been like a late PS3 game as far as the actual graphics go. But I do think that the art design of everything kind of just makes up for that a little bit. If I was going purely based on graphics alone, I would give it a little bit of a lower score than that. So yeah, it's a 7 from me. So then next is just the sound, like the music and the sound, the voice acting. What do you think, Rich?
Oh boy. No. No.
No.
No.
So basically when I first played this game, like right off the bat, I got this weird feeling that I was listening to Final Fantasy 13 stuff. I don't know
Which
if
has
that
an amazing soundtrack.
It does,
It's a
but
home
it's-
run.
it is, but it's just this for some reason got annoying to me. I don't
There's
okay.
a lot of vocals.
Yeah,
Is that like why you didn't like it, or
probably. It just something didn't sit right with me on it. So yes, Corey 13 has an amazing soundtrack. Don't hit me or anything like that. I'm sorry. It's just the overall sounds and stuff. I'm gonna give it a 7. There was a lot of annoying pieces to it.
Can we just permanently mute Rich for the rest
Hey,
of the
now.
show?
I'm the
Yeah.
original host, okay? How dare you?
he's got legacy status.
Yeah, I can't be fired.
What about you, Lauren?
Okay, well, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to give it a 10. The music, I loved it. Really different for me because so many of the songs did have vocals to them. And initially that was kind of like jarring. It took me out of it a little bit. But the songs were so good. We hear different versions of them throughout the game, like different, if you're hacking, you might hear like an 8-bit kind of version. And then you hear
Oh, yeah,
the
that was cool.
themes throughout the game when you're entering the same areas. And I sent a link to Scott and Corey of this whole like live concert of them like performing, because I think there are like 40 songs or something in this game's soundtrack, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, I love the music. Pascal's Village song is freaking
Fire.
amazing. It is fire, and anybody who disagrees is just objectively wrong. I'm sorry, you're wrong. So
Yes, I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay,
Me
Corey.
too, apparently.
Yes.
yeah, you're wrong.
Even though the Pascal's Village theme was by far not my favorite, I'm still going to give it a 10. At no point did the music disappoint me. And unlike, I guess maybe it's just me, but even when tracks have vocals in the game, I actually like that. For instance, like in Persona 5, when the tracks become vocalized, I was like, oh, it's even better now. So I don't mind vocal music in a game. The sound was great. The voice acting was great. Every single song, like none of them ever took me out of the game. I think they did a good job of matching it to the environment and to what you're going through. Yeah, so I don't think they could have improved this anymore, other than maybe taking Pascal's Village theme out. But
Wow.
Banned.
We're talking after the recording. We're
I'm kidding. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely after a few minutes it could grate.
Yeah, I don't know why I like it so much. I don't know. Like, I recognize that it could be like a little annoying, I guess, but I just love it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But no, the music was a home run in this game.
Jay gave it a 10 as well. He said absolutely amazing. I love Pascal's Village theme.
God, Rich, apparently we're the only ones that don't like this damn song.
I don't like it.
We're the only ones that don't get it.
No.
Um,
I mean, I gave it a good score. I thought 70's passing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 9 because although I agree that the soundtrack is one of the best I've heard in video games. It is a really really good soundtrack. However, there were certain points where I felt like the voice acting was a little off. Um, so I'm taking out away a point for that. As far as the sounds go, they don't really they didn't really stand out to me, but I don't really wow, getting tongue tied. Don't really remember anything that annoyed me either necessarily. The machine's voices could get annoying at some points, but um, so that brings us to our final main category, overall feel. So, Rich, what do you think?
I feel like I should poll you guys. Like, what do you think I'm going to say? Like,
We're going to take bets.
yeah. Okay. So I had fun. There was parts of it was fun. The graphics were obviously, I knocked them there. The music was a little annoying on sometimes. The voice acting was good. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Oh, that's
Is
feel
that
like
what you
that's
really
fair.
want
That's
to
higher.
give it?
Yeah,
No, I thought
I
you were
do.
gonna give it like a 5.
No, it's.
I was thinking
it
like
is
a
fun.
5 or a 6.
It's fun. The combat kept me going. A few pieces of the story were kind of good. The voice acting wasn't cringy. Like if the voice acting really annoyed me, I would have knocked it down further. But a 7, you know, it's a good game. You know, for what it is.
right.
It's not Final Fantasy
Okay,
15.
well,
I'm just
I'm
gonna tell
glad
you
you
that.
didn't like totally tank it because I thought you were about to, like they were saying.
No,
Um,
no.
so, Lauren,
Okay, so funnily enough, I'm going to give it the same rating as Rich. I'm also going to give it a 7. Um, didn't blow me away. Lot of highlights in the game for sure, which we've touched on throughout the episode. But ultimately, I feel like the disappointing plot really took a lot of its points away for me. At the end, I was like, oh, like womp womp. So
yeah,
a 7. That's what I think it's going to be for me.
okay, Corey,
I'm going to go with an 8. I really actually enjoyed this game. And I mean, Scott will back me up. I actually bragged on this game while we were playing it that I never once wanted to like stop playing. I really enjoyed the game. It really sucked me in. It's the only things are, it's got its faults, obviously, the constantly holding R1, the very confusing way that they laid the story out and then kind of not taking the story across the line. But overall, super fun game, and it's actually a game I could see myself going back and playing again. I mean, I wouldn't go and like do all of the side quests because a lot of the fetch questing shit just kind of gets on your nerves and whatnot. But overall, I can definitely see myself playing this game again, and it was really fun. And glad I played it.
okay. Jay gave it an 8. He said, I love the themes and atmosphere a lot. It's a shame they couldn't do it well with the story, which I agree with. I think I'm teetering between a 7 and an 8 as well. I think I am going to go with an 8 because even though I feel like the the, the story was a big letdown, and if the story had stuck the landing, this would be a 9 or a 10 for me because I think the game it's a really good game. Just has a couple glaring flaws that bring it down for me, but not so much that I would go down to so far as a 7 necessarily. Um, so yeah, and then we got our bonus category, which once again does not count. It's just sort of a for funsy thing. But what do we think of the final boss, Richard?
Yeah, 2.
Okay.
It just
Um,
no. It's dumb. No, thank you. It was too easy. I'm good.
Okay. Lauren.
5, kind of boring, like not super memorable. It was just generally a letdown.
I should say that when we say final boss, we're talking about either A2 or 9S. And so just making sure we're all on
They
the same page.
they could have done
Yeah.
so much better with that. They could have made it a lot more grander and things like that. They just
Yeah, it should have been awesome. Like it's
Yeah.
this kind of this moment we've been building up to, and it ends up being like.
Yeah.
I think in easy mode, I finished that fight with like a minute or two.
Yeah.
It was nothing.
What about you, Corey?
I'll go 6 because the only reason I'm going to give it a little extra is maybe it was just me, but I didn't see it coming with A2 and 9S going at each other. But echo what you all say. It was kind of boring. They built it up, and then it was just kind of a, all right, choose your fighter, and then go at it for 2 minutes, and then done. They could
Yeah.
have really expanded that out and made it just this phenomenal, like Final Fantasy type battle. And they just, again, they just couldn't get the ball across the line.
Womp womp. Jay gave it a 5 and wrote boring. Boring. Which I agree with. And I'm going to go down the middle of the road. No, I didn't like it. I'm giving it a 3. It was a terrible final boss in my opinion.
Yes, come down to my side.
Now, if it had been the the fight right before that with the dual machines switching back and forth between 9S and A2, I would have given it quite a bit higher. Like
That
probably
was a
7
better
or 8.
battle.
But yeah, unfortunately, that's not technically the final boss.
Did you
Okay.
see the thing from Frost real quick about the final boss on the chat?
Route C final boss is a 10. Route D is a 2. Route E is an 8.
So he broke him down, I guess.
I guess technically you could count the credits sequence at the end, the final boss.
That's too much.
Actually would give that a better score. But yeah, so we've got our ratings in, but before we need to take a quick minute to calculate everything, and I need to take a piss break. So I always forget to build a break into these review episodes. So we will be back in just a couple minutes. Be right back, folks.
Hey, Lauren, you have editing abilities, right?
No.
Oh,
Oh wait, on the dock. Oh yeah, I do. I thought
Do
you meant
I?
like
oh
I
don't
see an
have 'em.
anonymous. I see anonymous chameleon. Is that
Yeah,
you?
but it won't let me. Oh, wait. I
Yeah,
can
you
type
should be able
stuff.
to do stuff. Yeah.
Sweet.
I don't think it's locked to anybody.
Well, let's do some math here. So 12, 19, 24, 31, 38. Rich gave it a 38.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Well, maybe I should just let him do it. I suck at this. There. Jesus, typing on this. It won't let me use my like number pad for some reason. It makes me use the numbers
At
at
the
the
top.
top. Yeah.
That's weird.
Let's see. That's 15, 23, 30, 40, 48.
You all
That
your
was a-
10 scores.
I was a little friendly on that one. It was a 10. I don't care what you say. You can be wrong.
Yeah, I can be. You could be
Let's
wrong
see.
too.
I'm not though. That's okay.
Yeah.
15, 23, 30, 39, 47. Up 60. I think I did that right.
I cannot wait for a game where you and Scott both play and your guys' scores are way opposite. Generally, you two, your scores are pretty close.
There's been a couple games on the bonus reviews where our scores have been pretty off. I can't remember which ones, but I do remember me making the comment that, holy shit, for the first time we differ.
I just can't wait for that like really drastic, difference. He's like
Where he
fighting.
gives 10s and I gives 3s and
Yeah.
then we fight over it. We're like, no, Sky was a piece of shit. And you know it.
Fight.
It'd be a great time.
That'll make for good content at least.
Yes, it would. We got people putting scores out there in the chat. Sage Jeebus is listing out things.
Talking about.
Hey, he's using
What do you do?
decimals. That's not fair.
Yeah, we don't do
Yeah,
decimals
that's
here.
Very specific.
Why don't you go a step
At
further?
one point, I tried to get Scott once to introduce if letting us do like 0.5s, and he vetoed me very quick on that.
Yeah, we're about
I
simple
guess-
math here.
I guess Colin's maybe listing his feedback, so we'll go over that.
Mhm.
Let me know if I got that right.
Hey, Rich. Frost says maybe WOFF will be that game that causes me and Scott to go at it.
Ooh, yes. I'm
Maybe-
so
maybe.
excited.
All right, you guys ready? To get
Yeah.
back to it.
Ready?
Are you gonna be able to read your scores this time, Lauren?
Yes.
Okay. Starting back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are back and we have ran all the formulas and tabulated all the data, and we have our scores here. So we'll do a quick recap first. Rich, you want to read your scores?
Yeah, I can. So I got a story of 4, combat an 8, non-combat a 7, graphics a 5, music and sound a 7, what it deserves, and overall feel 7. Oh, do you want to do final boss too?
Yeah, and your
Okay.
totals.
Final boss is 2, and it gives me a subtotal of 38 out of 60, which is 63% for me.
Do you feel like that's accurate for you? How do
Yeah,
you feel about it?
It
Okay.
still passes.
Alrighty. What about you, Lauren?
So for story, I gave it a 6, combat a 7, non-combat an 8, graphics a 6, music, sound, voice acting a 10, the only correct rating. Overall feel 7, final boss a 5, and then my subtotal was 44 out of 60, which brings my total to 73%, which I also think is accurate to how I feel about the game.
Cool. Corey?
For story, I gave it a 7. For combat, an 8. Non-combat, an 8. Graphics, a 7. Music, sound, and voice acting, the deservedly 10.
Lies.
And the overall feel, an 8. Final boss, a 6, which is my subtotal of a 48 out of 60, or an 80%. And yes, I feel good about 80%.
By the way, spoiler alert, Rich is the lowest score and Corey's the highest. So
I think that's pretty normal though.
Jay gave a story a 6, combat a 6, non-combat a 7, graphics a 7, music and sound a 10, overall feel an 8, final boss a 5, which brings a subtotal of 44 out of 60, or a 73%, which is the same score as Lauren. And as for me, I gave story a 7, combat an 8, non-combat an 8, graphics a 7, music and sound a 9, overall feel an 8, final boss a 3, which brings my subtotal to 47 out of 60, or a 78%. Which brings the overall total final score of NieR Automata for the RPG After Years to be a 73%. I feel, despite as accoladed and treasured this game is amongst some crowds, I feel like that's about where I feel overall. I feel it's close to right for me. Just my
Yeah.
score would have been a little higher, I guess, but
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just a little on the low end, but yeah.
The hype level was just so high for this game, like game of the year. And I watched YouTube videos of people reviewing it, and they're like, this is the best game ever made. This is the best game ever made. And I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, so.
yeah. I'm looking at, if you give me just a second, I meant to do this on break, but I'm trying to see where it placed overall. Okay, so that would put the game apparently right at where we rated Astral Chain. So it would be between the Link's Awakening remake and Final Fantasy VIII. So yeah, that's that's significantly down the list, like 15 or 20 or something. But like we said, we think that's about accurate. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's okay,
Astral
it's
Chain
okay.
feels, about that same level.
Game
it's
is
about
high.
number 25 on the list, I think. So I would say I probably did like this game more than Astral Chain overall, but they're pretty close to the same game, made by the same studio, ironically enough. So
About that.
so we got some listener feedback here. I'll let you take the first one, Rich.
All right, so it's an easy one. Skeleton House. I didn't play along, but 11 out of 10. Game of the year every year. Why? Why? I don't understand.
I almost wonder if he's being sarcastic or trying to control Frost or something. But maybe
I'm
he
going to
really
go
does
with
love it
Troll and
that
Frost. I don't know.
much.
As
You can pick
everybody
the next
likes to
one,
do,
Corey.
right?
Yeah.
So Tales of Rob says it was a pretty good game overall. Typical sci-fi story beats, and I'm fine with the game having multiple endings, but this has something like 26 endings, and that's too many. And the fact that you had to beat the game 5 times to get the true ending would be okay if they changed up more. During the playthroughs of A and B was pretty much the same. The characters were good, and even the annoying 9S ones, 9S, grew on me, and I did have some feels for the destruction of the robot village. The music is amazing, and I will be, Rich. The music is amazing, and I will be adding this soundtrack to my collection. It is definitely my favorite non-Squaresoft Enix soundtrack. The art and graphics were very beautiful, but I do wish they had added more areas to the world. The combat was great, and I loved 2B and A2's hack and slash style. 9S hacking was fun at first, but got very tedious. So I just wish he had a second sword almost for more quick killing. Overall, I'd say 7 out of 10, and I'm glad I played it at least once and didn't miss out on it completely. They kind of echoed a lot of what we said.
Yeah. The one thing that keeps bugging me is like I've seen so many people say 9S is annoying. I thought he was the most likable character up until he lost his marbles.
Yeah, I liked
towards the end.
9S. I don't get the
I
9S
don't
hate.
get that.
He actually had emotion.
Yeah.
So finally, we have kind of like a full review from Frost. So I'm going to speed through this. It says, and for those that don't know, Frost infamously has been trashing this game since the word go. So,
Yeah.
he says, I'm going to say something that may surprise all of you. This isn't a bad game. That is surprising
What?
from him. But this game just didn't work for me. I couldn't connect to the characters, and I felt like I was rolling my eyes at the dialogue for most of the game. The story never felt like it was going anywhere, and in my opinion, it never did. Well, true. That aside, my main issue is that the actual gameplay isn't that fun. Spam dodge, then attack. Playing on hard, spam dodge a lot, then attack. Don't combo because that will leave you open to counterattack. Make sure you're holding down R1 the whole time. Enemies don't have weaknesses, and very few even have a weak spot. Bosses were mostly forgettable orb things. Interesting take. He must have just not like action RPGs. When I play an action game, I should want to fight every enemy in my path, but a few hours in, you'd be lying if you told me you weren't running past enemies. I didn't do that, typically.
Jay did.
I didn't
For
run
sure.
past enemies.
There are like 20 weapons, but they all feel the same. Is there a reason to use a spear over an axe over a sword? The differences seemed mostly cosmetic. I stuck to the smallest sword I could find so I wouldn't get animation locked. Also, the camera kind of blows. How many times could I not see my enemy because there was some shrubbery in the way? That's a fair criticism, I would say. He gave story a 6, graphics and design a 7. He says looks like a good PS3 game. There were definitely places that looked accessible in the world that were not. That is a good complaint that we didn't mention.
Yeah, fair criticism.
Sound and music 9, docked 1 for certain voice acting and being far too inconsistent with spoken dialogue. So he basically echoed exactly what I said. Combat 7, too much like combat in FF15, which I also hate. Shmup and hacking sections were alright, I guess.
How dare you?
What do you think he means by shmup? SHMUP.
SHMUP.
I don't know. Too old to
Non-
understand that lingo.
Non-combat, he gave an 8. Platforming was okay. I felt it was overhyped a little at times. Also, there were several times I was standing in thin air. Hated the perspective swapping and top-down mode as the worst offender, although I believe that was very limited. Yeah, it doesn't do that to you too often. Overall feel was a 7. Felt like 30 hours of listening to a college freshman talk about his final paper in Philosophy 101, mixed with 9S's incessant whining.
Well, at least it's an interesting way to explain it.
I like that.
I could get that. It does feel like it's trying to be like pretentiously artsy at points.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Which we don't understand.
yeah.
We don't understand that.
With
Well,
our little
overall-
simple brains.
He gave it a 44 out of 60, which is a 73%. Not terrible, which is exactly what our final score was. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, Frost was, he came around, I guess.
He came around a little bit.
I think
Imagine
that's a
if
fair
I- Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Lauren. Sorry.
I think it's a fair review. I mean, that's good points for sure. And apparently, shmup is like it means shoot 'em up. I just googled it.
Oh, okay. So, Colin
Oh.
put that in the chat as well.
Cool.
He also puts a postscript here. P.S. Thanks for everyone for putting up with my bullshit.
Aw.
For appeal at some points, I was like, oh my god, he's complaining about the weirdest things. But it did provide some interesting debates in the Discord. So
You got to give it to him. He did spur a lot of conversation in Discord.
yeah, that's
He
true.
did.
You're a valued member of this community, Frost.
Even though your opinions are wrong on Final Fantasy 15. Just gonna happen.
Actually, I will back Rich up on that. I've really enjoyed that game
Thank
as
you.
well.
But yeah, any other thoughts on the game before we close it out here? Nope. I think we've all said our piece then.
I'm not looking forward to playing the next one, but whatever.
And yet you went on there and you pre-ordered it. So
I did. Thank you, Lauren, again for this great opportunity to play this game that is terrible.
But you're so welcome. Anytime.
okay, moving on.
Secores pelaciomelo, ono pesla hora umashintai. Still we're gonna shout it loud, even if I would
another banger of a track. It's like
Well,
they
that's
didn't have
because
to.
it's a 10.
I kind of like that one. I
Yeah.
kind of.
It's like they didn't
Don't
have
lie,
to go
Rich, I
that
know you
hard
loved
with
it.
it, but they did. So yeah, that was a great review on what we can all, at the very least, agree on is an interesting game.
That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it.
This is very interesting.
But Rich, you want to tell the fine folks what we're doing next week?
Oh man, I'm so excited for this one. Next week is gonna be Final Fantasy 14 news featuring Mo_Reigns. Is that right?
Yep.
So I think we're gonna talk about a lot of the new stuff that's happened, especially the new DLC content or new expansion, I should say. Endwalker. We're going to talk about various other news features that's coming with that update, along with some just history with this person that does play a lot. Because I am the MMO RPG guy on the show.
Our MMO.
This is right up your alley, Rich.
It is. I'm kind of excited. I've been playing 14 and off and on for years, and I'm kind of excited to see somebody's other perspective on it.
Yeah, and so Mo Reigns is a streamer on Twitch that mostly streams Final Fantasy 14. But he's just like I've gotten to know him through Dizzy. He's just like a really cool, nice, like super kind guy. Like he's very wholesome on Twitch. So I'm excited to have him onto the show, and he's excited.
He recorded
about it too.
videos for Scott's hair routine.
Yes, he did.
Ooh.
I'm still struggling with that a little though. Note the hat, although I did roll out of bed for this.
Yeah.
But before we move on to our plugs, just want to thank Lauren one more time for coming onto the show. We really appreciated having you. And like we said before, you're kind of like a pro podcaster. We might have to replace Rich.
What? Well,
No.
fair enough. It's fine.
But it's
Replace
fun.
Bill, whatever.
But it's fun arguing with Rich about, things that he's objectively wrong about. So, I mean, gotta keep him around for that.
Well,
Whatever else
he's
is
used
new.
to it at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, I have to defend myself constantly with these guys. So occasionally
but-
Corey will jump in with me and say, "Yeah, I'm on your side." And
Well,
then,
when you're right, yeah.
yeah, I'm just never right.
But thank you for having me, guys. This was a blast, and I had a really good time playing this game, coming on here and talking about it with you guys. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And for those that want more Lauren, if you're a patron, she is on The Last of Us Part 2 review, as well as we just recorded the Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope. And next week we're recording Blair Witch, and I'm sure that there's a couple more somewhere down the line. But she's also going to be back on the show before too long for the review that we're doing for Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is the second game in that series. So hopefully everybody likes her because she's going to be back.
Any more
So-
Lauren coming?
Yes.
So yeah, thanks again. And moving on to our plugs. One way that you could help out the show is to give us a review on whatever podcatcher app that you use. Just the way the algorithms work, if you get a review, whether it be good or bad, it makes your podcast more visible. So that's a great way you can help the show. And as far as an even better way potentially to help the show, since Lauren is a patron, we're going to let her talk about the Patreon this time.
Yeah, so from firsthand experience, I can tell you that you get a lot of awesome perks with the Patreon. So you get early episode access, you get ad-free episodes, you get access to the aftercast, extra reviews, the RPG Club, which was what we played this game through the club, and a lot more. And you can find out more info on that at patreon.com/RPGafteryears.
Do you enjoy being a patron, Lauren?
I really do. I didn't even know, this is going to, again, make me sound like I'm 95 years old. I didn't even know what Discord was. I was like, what's Discord? So the Discord's really fun. I've really enjoyed the RPG Club. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. And you can support these guys through that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, in case you guys didn't notice, we are streaming the show live. We are on Twitch every Sunday, usually around 9 a.m. Eastern. You can find the show at twitch.tv/RPG Afterviews to see our lovely faces.
Yes, and we also there is a merch store for these guys over at our friends at Redbubble. Me and Scott actually own several pieces of the merchandise. It's really cool. The shirts are really good quality. They're super soft. You can find all of that over at redbubble.com/people/RPGafteryears/explore. If you type in all of that, you'll be able to see all the options. If you just do like a search on Redbubble, it limits it for some reason.
Weird. So email us if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or want to give us some episode ideas. Definitely you can email us at rpgafteryears@gmail.com. Email us.
And yeah, and another way to interact with these, not only everybody on the show right now, but everybody in the community, is to check out the Discord. Like we've kind of already mentioned, it's really super active in there. We've got a lot of like debates go on and a lot of chatter about different games. It's really a lot of fun. To find that link, just you need to go to the Twitter account, and it's pinned, or you can find it in the show notes. And speaking of Twitter,
Well, there's a couple more things I want to mention real quick.
well,
you guys are on point today.
It's not in the doc. We can't talk about it.
I was about to say, it's got to be in the doc.
It's illegal.
So for those that don't know, speaking of Twitch, I am also streaming on Twitch. Self-plug. You can find me at the
Shameless.
_Scott_spot. I have this platform for a reason, and I will use it how I see fit.
Shameless.
Also, real quick, I wanted to read our latest review that we got on Apple Podcasts from none other than Mo Raines. He's been listening to the podcast in preparation to actually come on the show. 5 stars, 100% worth listening to. Seriously, it's a blast. It's all things gaming, reviews, interviews, a recipe for success and fun every time. Subscribe to it, download it, listen to it. I promise it's worth it. And then he has 3 of the hands raised emoji.
Yeah.
So thank you for that very kind review, Mo. It's hard out there getting people to give you reviews. So
I also want to say hi to Aloros in chat.
yes, welcome, Aluros. You're coming in on the tail end of this thing, but your presence is appreciated nonetheless. So yeah, Corey tried to lead me into the Twitter earlier, so I'll do that now. You can find the show at RPG Years, and you can find me at the Scott Spot with no underscores.
You can find me at HaleBlue1569.
If you wanted to, you could follow Jay at JD Hizzle.
And you can find me at VFL Corey.
And you can find me at Lauren Lee 81.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for episode 52. So hopefully you guys all had fun, and we got through this game we spent months on. So join us next week for episode 53 as we discuss all things FF14 and streaming with Mo Raines. But until then, I'm Scott.
I'm Rich.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Lauren.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hasta luego.
The beast has been slain. The world has been saved. Our heroes are basking in the after years. They rest in the tavern for all to hear their tale of victory and conquered fears. Revel in the peace that reigns through the land. All will know it was by our heroes' hands. Here in the after years. Here in the RPG after years. Here in the RPG after years.